a few more people, yeah, a few more people may be joining us. I want to just do a couple introductory remarks. My name is Jeff Eichler. I'm the co-host of the Cultivating Resilience, a whole community approach to alleviating trauma in schools podcast. I'm also an author of the book, Shifting How School Leaders Can Create a Culture of Change. And I am supported today by my colleague, Dr. Martha Staley. Martha is with Yale University Program for Recovery, Community, and Health, and she is the project director for the Compassionate School Leadership Academy, which is our sponsor for this podcast and webinar series. We are in season 2 of our podcast and webinar series right now. Season 1, we focused on the causes and manifestation of trauma in schools. And in season 2, we're looking at how school leaders, thought leaders are trying to support the mental health and well-being of staff and students. And it's really an honor to introduce a superintendent who is doing exactly that. Dr. Kelvin Butts is the servant leader superintendent of Benton Harbor schools, and has some great stories to tell about what's going on in the district there. One of the things that impressed us in the podcast that we did with Dr. Butts was his dual focus. He is very intent on instruction, raising student performance, but like a DNA molecule, he's really intent on supporting the mental health and well-being of his kids and faculty. And he sees those two things as being intertwined. You can't do one without doing the other. And you're going to hear that philosophy today. So Dr. Butts, I'm going to pass it along to you.
Thank you so much. And thank everyone for having me here. It is a true honor to be in your presence this morning. I was really thinking, I didn't think as many people would be joining, so kind of intimidating, but thank you for having me. So I'll go ahead and get started, Jeff. You like me to?
Yep.
Okay. So I am Kelvin Butts. I am the newly appointed superintendent of Benton Harbor area schools. This is going into my 3rd year in the district. I started there as an assistant principal. Last year, I was interim superintendent and just newly appointed as of our June meeting as the permanent superintendent. So today we'll be talking about transformation while using MTSS, multi-tiered systems of services, and other strategies at Benton Harbor area schools, which is a webinar to discuss how to affect, which is influence, and effect, which are the results, change at Benton Harbor area schools. And these are tools for any school in transition and transformation. So I won't sit here and just read through the slides, but I feel better just talking through them. So Benton Harbor, in context, has been a district with a very long history. Benton Harbor has been in existence since the late 1800s. I have pictures in my office from teams that were, it's amazing, the history that's there. Over the years, like many communities we've seen, urban communities, things have changed. This district has gone through a lot of trauma. So I'm faced with the challenge of the process of rebuilding, reinventing, and reinvigorating the district. So my sole purpose really is to promote student-centered learning and academic achievement. That's the root purpose for me being there. And before I get to the literacy part, and just coming off of that last slide, when I talk about trauma, this district has been faced with systemic racism, and I didn't share with Jeff. I thought about it last night. I thought about it a couple of days ago, and I'll share it with him afterwards because I didn't know the type of content we could actually share here. But and I'll go through the slide. I know I won't take too much of your time, and I'll go through the slides. But to understand the racism, you would have to hear the recording that I have. Our school district just received debt forgiveness, which is something that you really don't hear about happening across the district, not districts, across the nation, where schools are in a deficit. Our school district got into deficit through different ways. Some due to itself. When I say itself, some past board members and decisions they made, but also through systemic racism, resources being taken and moved from the schools, land in the area, several things happening, which caused a flight of people. And it wasn't just white flight, as we usually hear of, it was Black flight as well. So what we have left are the economic disadvantage that didn't have any other means, and what we're left with. So we'll start with the literacy efforts. And then I'll go back to that recording when I get through the slide, and you'll see how it makes sense. But our current initiatives, we have a lot of initiatives going. Mainly what's driving these initiatives is because we are under a state partnership agreement. And it's not a state takeover. What it is an agreement with the state that is led by myself and the district, and partnered with the state of Michigan to ensure that we achieve academic proficiency. So what got us with the partnership agreement was we weren't showing up on any radar of any state test scores of any sort. We were at zero. We were the lowest. So taking the job, I've been questioned many times, why did you take this job? Because I was like, it's so simple. You have nowhere to go but up. Why not take the job? This is where you build your legacy. So some of the initiatives we have is letters training district-wide. Letters training is a comprehensive, if you don't know about letters training, it's a comprehensive reading training. So I went through some of the training as a principal when I first entered the district. And in Georgia, we would call it a reading endorsement. So I got a reading endorsement in Georgia. So when I got into the program, I was like, oh, it's just a reading endorsement. We have SLD implementation throughout the district. Because so many of our students have special needs. One of the things that happened with our district was the lead crisis, and it does have effects on students' learning. Heritage implementation, which is a bridge to reading. Reading mastery in the K-5 area. We have, we as an educator, you know, we always take things and we shorten it. So the State Personnel Development Grant, we call it the SPDG implementation, and that's a grant that kind of oversees the entire MTSS process. We have database individualization and disciplinary literacy, which is teaching literacy basically across the spectrum of all core content areas. For math, we have database individualization, Delta Math, and the independent school district coaching. So we have ISDs, some of you have RESAs, regional education service agencies, and different places. So our ISD is doing a lot of coaching. So part of our partnership from the state, our RESA had to be part of the partnership. They had to commit to partnering with us. So if you're an ISD or your RESA, you know, the district pays dues, you get coaching. But again, that was part of the trauma that was done to the district. There was some things that happened between, I'll just say things that happened between our RESA and our district that did not benefit our district for some years. The best thing about it now, with me coming in, I'm an outsider. I came in, you know, I'm from Georgia. I'm sure you can tell from the accent, I'm not from Michigan. So I came in as an outsider with a fresh set of eyes, and the RESA superintendent was new. And I came in with a lawsuit at my hands, and it was against the RESA. So, you know, it's like you're coming in with, okay, here we go. It's trial by fire. So I called Eric up and I was like, okay, Eric, This is not my battle. This is not your battle. How can we get this settled so we can start moving we need to start healing and we need to start educating. He was like, so Kelvin, the ball is in your court. The mediator told me to come and talk with you. And it was crazy because the mediator told him to come talk to me. It was my third day on the job. I'm like, okay, what are we going to talk about? So I had just a small bit of content about what was going on. To me, things seemed a little nefarious. And I expressed my concerns with Eric about the little bit that I knew and the little bit that he knew. So I knew what the numbers were. We split it down the middle. I was like, okay, are you willing to pay half? He was like, are you sure? Look, I'm new. I can use the excuse. I'm new for this time. If you're willing to pay half, we can sell it today. He got on the phone with his attorneys. We settled it and been moving forward since. So, and since then, he's come to the board and made a public apology to our board for the past ills that were done to the school district by his agency. So that was part of the healing for not just us per se, but for the district, the community, and the faculty and staff, because they were there to witness and have some of those things done to them. For the social emotional learning and the positive behavior incentives at Benton Harbor area schools, we have collaborative classrooms, which is a program that we use to help our students. Of course, I'm sure many of you have heard of positive behavior incentive systems, PBIS. It is, again, a cultural shift for me, because in the South, we shorten our words. And so in the South, we just say PBIS. And so when I first said it, several of the women looked at me like, are you being inappropriate? I'm like, oh my God, what did I say? And it was just, they was like, what did you just say? I was like, PBIS. And they was like, who? PBIS. They was like, we don't say that here. So it's the cultural thing it's been really, I think that's the part that keeps me going with the job, because I'm always learning something that Southerners below the Bible Belt, I'm from Georgia, Central Georgia, learning about an urban northern city that just don't go together. And we've started restorative justice practices. With the restorative justice practices, we don't just do it with the students, we're also doing it with community and our parents. So what we've started doing, we had a situation, and I'll move kind of fast. Had a situation with the student and the parent. Communication is key. Parent came to the board meeting. I had no clue what was going on. Talked about all these negative things. End up, long story short, it got to my office. I asked the mom and the grandmom, would they agree to coming to a restorative justice circle? So one of the people in our district is a circle keeper. So we were able not only to resolve the issue between the teacher and the parent, but with the students themselves, because we have to restore what caused the pain, what caused the hurt, the trauma. Some of the isolated strategies we're doing, which is shelter instruction observation protocol, which protocol training, which we call PSYOP. It's just an observation protocol, and it's not an I got you thing. It's going in, seeing it's a basic walkthrough. You're going in, you're seeing what is missing. You have the non-negotiables, you're seeing what's missing, seeing what the teacher needs, and not an I got you moment, and you walk them through it. TCI, which is therapeutic crisis intervention training. Again, we have a lot of crises that happen in our district. Students are, and if you're from an urban district or many school districts, unfortunately across the nation, we experience a lot of student deaths, parental deaths, a lot of crime, high crime, and the Kagan training, which is a type of discipline training. It's like a book all of our teachers got, we've trained on, and they have a multitude of ways to address different behaviors within the classroom. Some of the instructional initiatives we have a plethora. These are the key ones that I put on this slide, but we have a lot because again, we showed up nowhere on any state assessment, which is what got us to the partnership agreement. They did every year they do this, this statewide report card, if you would, to see where the schools fall. We didn't even make the mark. It was not just our district. There were 56 districts within the state of Michigan, and so it sounds a lot, but in Michigan we have 583 districts. So just to give you the perspective of that. But the instructional initiatives we're using, one is the 8-step process. I think a lot of people use it, they just don't put a name to it. Data desegregation, instructional calendars, instructional focus, assessments, tutorials, enrichment, maintenance, monitoring, and then recycle. So it's just a recycling of differentiated instruction. In the South, we did it some years ago, but what I've learned in this position is that in a disadvantaged area, things are just light years behind. I was really taken aback to see how far behind this district was. Common formative assessments and thinking maps. And again, thinking maps, when I came in, I was like, wow, I did train the trainers and thinking maps on, while I was teaching. So it was surprising to me. And for me, a little bit of background moving forward so that you can understand how I can, number one, assimilate, empathize, and understand not only the process, but the trauma and the things that people went through. I started as a teacher, but before I taught, I was a bus driver. Prerequisite for superintendency for all of you if you want to go into superintendency. I started off as a bus driver in college to pay my way through school, and then I started teaching, and from there I went into administration. So questions so far?
Dr. Butts, I can maybe start things off. What was the psychologically, what was the district like when you assumed the superintendency 3 years ago? How were people feeling about themselves?
I'll answer it like this. When I first got appointed, at my first principals meeting, this lapel that I wear here, we talked about a little offline, this lapel that I have, one of the principals, so again, I was a principal in the district first, and I was appointed interim and now superintendent. So he was a colleague and still is, I just colleague. So he said, so when can we get one of those pens? I was like, oh, I'll give you one. He was like, wow, really? And I'm like, okay, am I missing something? So he was like, we were told that we had to earn those pens. And my thought was, if you come to work every day, you earn the pen. So to give you a sense of where people were, devalued, just deflated, just, I'm just here. I'm just showing up because nobody's going to hear me. Nobody's going to understand. Nobody wants to hear me. It was just desolate.
And the pin is the logo. It's the district logo.
It's our logo.
Yeah.
So right. I gave everyone a pen.
So I guess the follow-up that I'm really curious about, your philosophy is one of servant leadership. How does that manifest itself on a day-to-day basis? And with the number of initiatives going on, how do you keep people focused?
Good questions. So how do I let that manifest? I've gotten a little chastisement from the board a couple times. One was just recent. So servant leadership is really getting into the trenches. Okay. Again, in a district such as ours, where it's just been, it's almost like a village that's just been raped, robbed, and pillaged, to be honest. You know, nothing, I mean, very few systems work, very few things were in place. So just the start of this beginning of the heating season, some of the HVAC systems weren't working, right? So in the past year, we talked a little offline. The past year, becoming interim, I've taken like, I think 3 days off. It was 3 days off. I can't remember. It was, yes, because I caught COVID on a Friday. I forgot about that one. I caught COVID on a Friday. And I was back in a mask, just camped out in the office that Monday. And this last time I was off, I had knee surgery on a Thursday. I took that Friday off to recover, and I was back at work on Monday. And that Thursday, one of the HVAC guys was there, and he needed to get up to the roof. And our maintenance guys were busy. Everybody was busy. So I had the key. I knew where the roof was. I knew where the HVAC system was. So let's go. So I went up to the roof and didn't see it was a piece of cement sticking out. And I had to get stitches and got a concussion trying to get him up there. But we got him up there, and he got the system going. Things that I do, I will go and sub in a class if needed. I do some of our training. I actually stand up and do some of our training. I've led some of our data talks. We have data days that we teach our staff how to look at their data and group their students. So being a servant leader is serving the people. I need to get them. It is my job to find the partnerships and the things that they need, and then make sure it's delivered, and then make sure it's done with fidelity. Being a servant leader, when I first became principal at the middle school, I told the staff I was their biggest beggar. What do they need? Their school, the district had never had air conditioners, which was common in the North. And I'm like, okay, in the South, we cannot live without AC. Like, you can't live without heat up there. We cannot live without AC down here. So I was like, okay, I was like, oh gosh, what did I get myself into? Stuck my foot in my mouth. Went to Lowe's, went to Home Depot, and one of the substitutes that day was affiliated with the church, and within 2 weeks, the entire building was AC'd, and I got ACs donated, and they were installed within my first 2 weeks of being principal there. And within my first month of being superintendent, after I was appointed, Whirlpool had already heard about the initiative that happened at the middle school that I was at. So they did it for the rest of the district. So within the first 3 weeks of being superintendent, the entire district had ACs. So that's the servant leader.
Anyone listening, a question?
Dr. Butts, we have a question from the chat from Brandon. When did you identify you wanted to change to be a servant leader? Individual guidance or maybe external factors, but could you talk a little bit about your development and evolution into a servant leader?
Sure. So that servant leadership came very early in the career. I was not in education. I was a pre-med major. So, life has had a bunch of turns for me. I was a pre-med major. My godmother was an educator. She was my principal, as a matter of fact. She was my middle school English teacher and one of my principals as I grew up. And was not going into education. Things happened, life happened, end up trying my best not to get a job. So I was at a job. I had a guy there that he was a colleague of mine. He couldn't pass this. I couldn't even think of the name of the test. It was he couldn't pass this teacher something test. And so, but it wasn't called a teacher test. It was a test. So it can't be that hard. So I was the competitive one, smart. I went and took the test. Why did I do that? I passed on the first try. So I tried my best not to get a job teaching. I went everywhere where I knew I would not get a job. So I can come home and tell my wife, I'm sorry I can't get that job because I'm headed to med school. And she was like, you didn't try right here in town. And before I walked in good, I met one of my high school teachers who just so happened to be the principal. He was like, Kelvin, yeah. So what are you here for? I'm looking for a biology job. You're hired. I was like, oh, I need an interview. I need to go home because I wasn't coming back. And so it started there. And when I got into teaching, I saw so many things, you know, where disadvantaged people, whether you were white, Black, or Hispanic, there was always a need. And so for me to help them really it changed my mind about teaching, about how I wanted to move forward. So it kind of developed. I didn't wake up one morning and say, oh, okay, I'm gonna go serve people. No, it was over time a development of, okay, this is what you do, this is how you do it. And so the rewards that I get from it are years later when I leave a school and I have staff that say, okay, wherever you go, I don't care what part of the country, I'll move. And I'm like, okay, so what did I do? And people are like, so we don't see this line. I still don't understand what I do that is different. I think, you know, so my question to you all is, tell me what I do different, because I don't see it.
We had a question from Jill Flanders. Dr. Butts, what first steps would you suggest a school leader could take to become a servant leader? Are there resources, coaching, or other supports you have found?
Yes. So in becoming that, you have to know your why. You have to know your why. And so I'll share just a little bit. I don't want to take much time because I'm a talker. I guess you all can tell I'm a talker. You have to know your why to become a servant leader. I just recently had to redefine my why. And let me tell you about that, and then I'll tell you about the resources. The contract that I just signed, you know, it was considerably lower than the last 3 superintendents. And mind you, we've had like 7 in the last 5 years. And 2 in 1 year of those 5 years. And I was paid significantly lower, and I just felt so devalued. You know, for a moment, I had this moment of, you know, I'm bringing this to you, I'm doing this for you, I'm working. It was what all I'm doing, right? But do you hear the common thread in that? I'm doing, what I brought, what I did, I'm doing. And I had a hard weekend, really hard weekend. And I just had to sit in the moment to figure out, okay, Kelvin, why did you take the job in the first place? Were you trying to get your 401k right? Not with this pay, but at any rate. Were you trying to get your 401k right? Were you trying to enrich yourself? Why did you take this job? And I had to man up and be like, oh, you know what? I took this job to leave my legacy, to leave a stamp on. If I can leave a stamp on one child's heart, I will have did what I set out to do. The other things, becoming a servant leader, you have to know the pulse of the district. You have to have like an entry plan. What is your entry plan? What does that district need? Each district is so unique. Every district has certain needs. So you figure out what those needs are and how can you best serve those needs of the district. So those tools are out there. Creating your 90-day entry plan, surveying the district, not just the district. What does the community need? What are the needs of the families? What is the need of the local government? How can you partner with that? What are the partners, the big players, the politicians, the politics, if you would, in the area? How do they play into or take away from? And if they take away from, how do you braid those two back together? You know, if there were relationships that were broken, there were plenty broken in Benton Harbor, I can tell you. How do you go back and you say without saying? So, you know, if one side is ready to apologize, but I'm the one that you've done this to, and I haven't let this go for the last 40 years, which is a lot of things I'm dealing with. How do you, okay, I'm gonna take this. I can't tell them I got it from you, but then once we start enjoying it, oh, by the way, they were an instrumental part. So there are tools out there. It's quick research, but the biggest portion is your why, knowing your why.
Dr. Butts, you mentioned community, and I know you want to talk a little bit in depth on that, because when we think about changing a district, we're not just talking about changing the people within the walls of the school buildings, but also addressing the needs of the community. So maybe you could move on to that. Thank you.
Okay. Is that the next slide?
Yep.
Okay. So let me do this right here. Thank you. So we'll start with that. For the community, there are so many needs when you talk about community outreach. And before I get to this, again, a story, just a storyteller. And someone told me I should write a book. I have so many stories, but I have to write all this down, take forever. But one of the things our kids in the district and our families are facing so much trauma. Parents, 2 years ago, I had a child in my school, children in my school, adult issues. Husband shoots wife, shoots the boyfriend, and then shoots himself. Kids, I had kids that lost both their mother and father, and then their father. So you have to deal with that, okay? And we'll talk about it in a second. So I had this other mother that's had some other legal challenges that I just had to write a letter for. And I didn't write a letter to clear her of her legal challenges. The letter was of her character with her kids. It doesn't excuse what she's done, but she's one of our parents that we can always count on. So you have to balance it. So I did put that in my letter to the judge, by the way, not to excuse, but if it's part of her punishment, it's working for the school, make her work for free. We could really use the help. You know, if she can't come into the schools, fine, we can use it maintenance. We can use it after school custodial work. We need the help. But some of the things that we were able to, I was able to leverage through big community partner of ours is a care counts program. Some of you may have seen it on the commercial. I thought we were really special. We were just doing it.
Like it was just a servant leader approach to.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just heard someone talking. So the care counts program, I thought we were special until I saw it on a commercial. So Whirlpool, we partnered with Whirlpool as part of their care counts program. So it's a program where we have washers. They've donated washers and dryers to each one of our buildings. We only have 6 buildings, but in each building we have a wash and dryer. And what this program has shown is to reduce absenteeism. So our parents, we place them strategically in the building so it can be not so public. And kids can bring their clothes to school to wash them, or the families can bring their clothes. If they can't afford to go to the laundromat, bring your clothes to our schools. We'll wash them for you. Had a kid to have an accident at school. We have clothes on the side, put his clothes in the washing machine, put him in the gym. You know, so that day it was, we're going to change your class, your schedule for the day, you're in the gym. So the other kids didn't know. And we give you a sweatsuit so you can go ahead and you're going to work, you know. So we made it look that it was almost like a punishment for the kid, but he knew. And we cleaned his clothes for me. And at the end of the gym, we showered, put his clothes back on, sent him home clean. We have a Feel Good Refrigerator program, again, a co-sponsored with Whirlpool. And it's almost like a school-based food pantry. Parents that can come in and fill up their refrigerators from our refrigerators, literally. We have food delivered every week, and we feed the community, literally. The community road bus was one of the initiatives. I brought it to the district. It was not my original idea. I will not take credit for something that's not mine, but I brought it to our district. And it's a community road bus. So the picture that you see, it's a bus that what I did was, and they thought I was, when I first pitched it to Whirlpool, and they took a chance on me. So I went to them, I said, look, I want to buy a bus. Not because I'm a bus driver, but I want to buy a bus and I want to turn it into a mobile lab. And everybody's like, what? I said, so we have a community barrier. A lot of our parents don't drive, don't have transportation. There are all kinds of issues, right? Don't have internet, you name it, some do not have. So the idea was take a bus, let's turn it into a mobile lab with a hotspot. And so we have the community nights or the parent nights for the parents that can't make it, or for those parents that can't even get their kids to school, to register them, to get their, to come and fill out FAFSA, to get just their basic information. So what I did was I pitched the idea to get a bus, turn it to lab. They didn't know what I was talking about. So you see the picture of the school bus, it's the actual school bus. We stripped the seats out, we put counters in, put an inverter on the bus. I knew a lot of this because I'm a jack of many trades, a master of none. So we stripped it out, we put a counter in there, we put an inverter in there, I had some lights put on there, we kind of tricked out the bus. And then in the back, you'll see the big monitor I had. So the bus that came from the South did not have all of this stuff in it. So I did add my own little spin to it. So we put a big monitor on the bus. And when the parents get on, they get on like, wow, what is this? So it's a literally mobile lab. So you can come on and you can learn Power School or Infinite Campus. I don't know which program you use. Learn how to log in. We do FAFSA nights. Whatever information that is needed. What I'm trying to partner with is Intercare, which is an agency within our community. It's like a medical agency. So when our students need physicals, put a nurse on the bus, take the bus to the community. If you can't come to us, we will come to you. Being a servant also means removing the excuses. So with this bus, I can go to you. What's your excuse? So why is Jimmy not coming to school today? What's the excuse? Why don't we have your phone number? So take away those excuses. Oops, I didn't mean to go back. The webinar was focused on mental health and wellness for staff and students, for the staff. Everyone has an EAP, right? Or should. But we do restorative circles for staff and the community as well. In these areas, you get teachers, and this is in every district, any district, all the districts I work in, you got teachers that don't like each other for some reason or another, or your students are performing better than mine, or mine better than yours, for any reason. So the restorative circles are to restore to restore that harm that was caused, or what was taken away, restore that mistrust that was caused. It gets at the root of the cause and to restore it. And you get a chance to tell that person your feelings, but it's in a very structured way. Effective communication is a big part of mental health. Think about marriages. Think about, so for me, when everybody start pushing the thing for mental health for staff and students, for me, it was almost common sense. It's like, okay, think about a marriage. Most marriages break up because of lack of communication. Think about when you're with your kids. Like me, I have 4, they're all grown, thank God. But the communication barrier, and growing up and trying to. So when they go from elementary school to middle school, they become monsters. You don't know who they are. Then they become high schoolers and they think they know everything. It's like, okay, who are you now? And then they get grown. And they go off to college, and then they will call you and tell you their personal life. Too much information. So effective communication. So one of the things I started, and I just completed on Friday of last week, was I did all of my buildings. I did one-on-one with teachers. And I was going to put it on here and I didn't do it. Should have took you a screenshot of my schedule for the day. It was absolutely crazy. I thought my executive assistant had lost her mind. Because they were appointments all day long, just back to back to back to back to back to back at a building. But it was really good information that I got because, with all those initiatives going on, you would think that, at a school in transition, you have all this stuff you're throwing at teachers. You're throwing this, and you're putting so much on their plate. And to be an effective leader, the best thing you can do is take something off their plate. the answers that I got was, we need follow-up. So I went in with Pepto-Bismol ready to drink it from, between the meetings. Okay, getting this ulcer. And it was absolutely amazing because the biggest thing that I got from the one-on-ones was we've never talked to a superintendent. No one has ever come to us to hear our voice. We weren't heard. We weren't seen. You talk to us, you see us. So, and my message to them was, I don't want to do anything else to you. I want to do stuff with you. And the only way I could do something with you is to have your voice in the decisions that I make. So one quick story, I spoke with some security staff. They had the same thing, never talked to a superintendent, never been heard. But when we have fights in the high school, the radio's allowed, right? So we have the 10 code that they vary by state. In Georgia, it's 1010, in Michigan, it's 10-5. I know that I was a juvenile justice. I used to be a youth officer at the juvenile center, and I taught the juvenile center years ago. Tell my age. Anyway, the security guard said, if we had earpieces that we can talk into, when we call a 10-5, the students hear it on the radio, they run out of the class, they want to see a fight. But if we had the earpieces on, they couldn't hear what we were saying, what we were communicating. They wouldn't come out of the classrooms. So I just so happen to have a box of them in my office because, again, I'm Southern. So I would be in my office and my executive assistant would be sitting outside. And instead of me, of course, just picking up the phone, because I never memorized her. I still to this day do not know Miss Liz's extension. I yell, Miss Liz, and she's like, coming, boss. So I was like, okay, we got to stop. So we got the earpieces. So again, going to the age, I will tell you, God does a miracle. We couldn't figure out how to put the doggone earpieces in and get them to work on the radio. It was, I'm telling you, it's almost like using the iPhone. I'm an Android user, so for your iPhone people, but it was crazy. So we ditched the earpieces and we kind of ditched the radios too because we're just yelling back and forth. But when he said that, I was like, so would this solve your problem? And they were like, they've never received anything from anyone. I also sent out videos from my office. So instead of sending a stale email of what I want to explain, I send a video. I sit in front of the camera. I record myself. It is very difficult to listen and look at yourself. It is awful. I'm telling, for me, it is anyway. It is like taking your fingernails and going across a board and listen to myself. But we also do climate and culture surveys. It's ongoing professional development. So when you know what you're doing, it makes the job less stressful. So now we got to start the follow-up. We do the professional development and they love it, but they need follow-up. And we have common rooms for staff. So in the far back over there, you'll see a chair. That's one of the chairs you find in the spa. We have the calming music in the room. We have the vaporizers with the different scents in there, vaporizing the room. Just our teachers need common space. Trust me, if you've been a teacher before and you had the class from hell, excuse the expression, you need about 10 or 15 minutes sometimes to just go and woosah. So we provide that for our teachers. And sometimes when I'm doing my walkthroughs, if a teacher needs a break, go take a break. We had a student to pass and the teacher just couldn't handle it one day. We had the grief counselors on staff. I was there. She was having a rough time. And I told her just, you cannot be in front of the students. Take an hour. I took the class for an hour. It was really fun, though. It was fun to hang out with the kids. How does this fit into the MTSS framework, the multi-tiered systems of support that requires districts to take a whole child approach? So when we take care of the staff, we're taking care of the students too, because now they can look at what do the students actually need? How do we respond to them emotionally? So we have student calming rooms too. One of the videos of one of the fights I saw at the high school, it is such a small thing to do. We got it from a grant, okay? There was a grant out there. You missed your opportunity if you didn't apply for it. It was a USA grant for it. It was a one done. Oh, it may have been in Michigan too. So we applied for it, we got it. It was just like $20,000. So, and that's not much, but it was just enough to buy a few furniture pieces. But when one of the students she got into a fight. You can hear on the video, I need to go to the common room. I need to go to the common room. And, you know, so her friend was like, and I'm going with her. So we took them both into the common room. It works. What do the students need physically? Is your building ADA compliant? Is everyone taking gym? Are they moving around? Is your classroom set up so that there's movement? That we cannot sit like Laura Ingalls in the 1900s and think students are going to sit there and write and learn. No, even as a teacher, I would always tell my students, don't let your smartphone outsmart you. You know, we use phones. How can we support families within the community? We just talked about it. We go to them. We have truancy officers. I have been to some homes. I didn't want to go into some homes, but I've been to some homes. How do we reach community members in a multitude of ways? Leverage your partners. You know, there are many partners. Again, there have been broken relationships, your local hospitals, your Habitat for Humanity. If you got a big corporation, we just so happen to have Whirlpool. In Georgia, in the community I live in, Georgia Power is down the street. My house in Georgia is close to the power plant. So leverage your partners that you have. It could be your local mom and pop store. You know, people want to give, they don't know how. They want, I get it so many times, I want to give, but I don't know how. You know, we take volunteers, you know, to relieve that teacher to go to that 15-minute break. So that's how we support, how the whole framework goes into it. So I guess I'm at the end of this presentation. I've talked a lot.
Dr. Butts, I have a question about listening to you talk about things like the bus or the washing machines or the calming rooms, the things that it sounds like you've really attended to the needs of your staff and kind of and your students and just met them where they're at. What's been the impact on your staff and students? I know you've only been there a couple of years in your superintendent position, but do you see a change in them?
So the impact has been, it's really been phenomenal. I'll say the least. It's been phenomenal. And I'll tell anyone, it's not because of me. You know, a lot of people say, it's what you've done. No. It's not because of me. It's what I've helped to empower others to do. I cannot do this job. Kelvin cannot do this job, okay, by himself. The impact has been, we've seen a marked decrease this year in the number of fights, in the number of violent fights that we've had at the high school. Knock on wood, we've had three. We've had 3 incidents this year. I will tell you, my first year that I got there at the middle school, by now we would have been in this 60 to 70 range at the high school. But my first year at the middle school, I got a concussion because I had parents to come in and jump some students and me in the process. So I got sent to the hospital that day, and it was crazy because I thought I was gonna get a day off and I had to come back the very next day. It was, I can laugh at it now, but you know, I got hurt. Not only a concussion, but my leg was hurt. I was on pain meds, and I remember that next morning, on the phone with the staff, I was like, okay, I'm coming in. I got to get legal first, and then I'll be in. But the impact we've seen, that we see large absenteeism in staff. That is decreasing. Staff absenteeism is decreasing. The fights are non-existent at the middle school this year. I won't say non-existent, but they're not hitting my office, so to speak. They're very small. And students are wanting to come. They are wanting to come back. They want to be there. We have more people now. And so the things that we're doing is causing us to have an opposite response, if you would. So right now it's like, okay, hold off. I can't take your money. I can't take your volunteers. I can't take anything else now because we're managing what we have. and we have to be very intentional on what we do. So the impact has been phenomenal just in the 3 years that I've been there. And within that first year, when we were able to put the air conditioners in the middle school, the response was monumental. It was positive and negative. So I'll say positive because the middle schoolers were cool, right? But it was negative because now we had parents that were saying, my elementary child is hot and my high school child is hot. How dare you? So it was like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to create a problem. I thought I was helping. So it's phenomenal. The little things, the small wins, the earpieces went so far.
Yeah, thank you for talking about that impact on both, not only the staff, the students, and the community, right? The showing them that respect of listening to them. We have a question in the chat about how you cope with the workforce issues, substitutes, absenteeism by staff, lack of staff or substitute challenges.
Let me tell you that's where your servant leadership, your servitude is really put to the test. We cope with it like any other district. Sometimes we have to collapse classes. So in our district, we are very unique compared to some of your districts. So some of your districts, you may see 2 or 3 teachers out, right? In our districts, we have a little over 100 teachers, but over half of our teachers are grow your own. They're not certified. We're growing our own. That's number one. Okay, as a middle school principal, when we talk about absenteeism, I had one day, and it was the day, this time of year always remind me of it. We had our Thanksgiving dinner, and that was the year I came in, it was crazy. I had 7 teachers to show up that day. In a building, I had the most kids in the district. We had 400 kids in that building, and I had 7 adults, with myself making 8. Did not know what we were going to do. So I went to each of the rooms. The kids did not know where their teachers were. Some of the rooms, the kids are, they're programmed, right? So they go to the classes. I went to the 8th grade rooms first. I had teachers in the hallway. We were trying to monitor, and they were looking at me like, what in the world are we going to do? And this program starts in like an hour and a half. Okay, give me a second. Okay, got a plan. I go to each classroom, and I give each one of them an assignment, and I was being really strict. And I told them that if they screwed up the assignment, that they would be suspended for the rest of their lives. And, so I gave each class a strict assignment and a duty. This is what you do, this is what you do, this is what you do. Are there any questions? And I went down the line, and I got my teachers together. You're going to monitor this group, you're going to monitor this group, you're going to monitor this group, I'm going to monitor this group. And I'm going to perform for our parents. It was crazy. So that day, so I just told you about when I first got there, I got attacked by parents. So by Thanksgiving, that was September. So by November, this had come up. That day was one of the smoothest days that I had for that entire school year. The students had duties. So when you make the students feel responsible or they take pride in what they do, they had a responsibility that day to take care of their building and the people that were coming in. They were the servants, right? I had a cleaning crew, I had a serving crew, I had a welcoming crew. I mean, I had a crew for I had a grounds crew, a furniture crew. I had a crew for everything, and we were constantly moving. I was going around, I was orchestrating. You make sure you did this, get this done. That chair needs to be moved. And if you are, and I had the kids that I know that didn't get along. If you even breathe an argument, the rest of your life is done. It was just that, and it was amazing. So at the end of the day, when all the kids left, I called an impromptu staff meeting, and everybody come to the gym. Teachers came in, and they were literally just, out of breath. And I just said, I want you to give yourself a hand. We ran the school with you all today. And they looked around, and one lady was like, you got to be kidding me. She didn't say kidding me. She let it rip that. It's gotta be kidding me. I was like, no, I didn't have anyone to call. I didn't have time to call central office. I did what I had to do. But the next day, we were able to have a virtual day because I could not do that again. You know, we didn't have another program, and I just could not run a school with 7 adults with 400 kids in the building. So we have those problems. You have to reach out to central office. We actually end up going virtual for 2.5 months because I was so short of staff. So it was thinking outside the box. I had to sing for the audience that day. It was nothing short of amazing that day. I tell you, I had a higher power with me that day because I just knew it was going to be a fight. I just, I had those kids that had just fought the week before moving desks together. And they were like, you hold your side up. Like I said, the rest of your life, you will not go to school, and they didn't know any better. So it worked.
We had one more question in the chat, Dr. Butts. How did you get the students interested in SEL and the intervention program?
Because we started to let them lead it. We made them part of the process. So one of my rounds that I'm doing, the one-on-ones, I'm talking to the students as well, because again, we don't want to do things to the students. We want to do things with the students. So let their voices be heard. They will have ideas that will blow you away. When the state school superintendent came down to speak with the seniors, I slid the chair back. I didn't put a picture on here. I slid the chair back, and I just wanted to listen. I didn't want to influence anyone. And they were like, so what we want are more possibilities, more programs, more this. I'm thinking, oh God, they don't talk about all this stuff we got going on. And we're testing. So they have the common formative assessments. That's every other week. They have the Ames Web, they have NWEA, they have PSAT, they have all these state mandated and now local tests. We are testing the crap out of our students. We are seeing growth. We have seen a 5% increase on NWEA scores. We're actually now starting to show up on the state's database, and that's been within a year and a half. So for the student part, we listen to the students. Their voices are heard, so they get the buy-in when they see that the peer mediation group is being led by this person. Oh, so now I want to lead one, because if you can, I can. If you can share your feelings, I can share my feelings. And we let them lead, because again, the perception reality thing is real. Sometimes the perception is the reality when it's really not, but that's a debate. But at any rate, so we give them their voice.
Very good. We're gonna close right now, but I want to invite anybody to stay for a few minutes afterwards. Martha is going to tell us a little about the Compassionate School Leadership Academy. Please feel free to stay if you want to ask Dr. Butts any additional questions. Okay, Martha?
Sure. Hi again, everybody. The Compassionate School Leadership Academy is the sponsor for this series, and we have worked with Dr. Butts over the last several months to focus on the Compassionate School Leadership Academy, which is a research grant from the Department of Education, to help schools that have needs, and those needs might be in terms of equity or socioeconomic needs, or other sorts of crises or have experienced trauma. Our mission is to develop professional development to support leaders in those schools so that they can create more compassionate, equitable environments. So we have been working with Dr. Butts and his middle school in Benton Harbor as part of that research work. I don't know if you want me to say anything else. I know we're short of time, so.
Oh, sounds good. I just want to thank all the educators that signed on today, and thank you for the work that you're doing daily. Any questions for Dr. Butts? Okay, well,
I just wanted to ask
go
a
ahead,
question,
Martha.
if that's okay. You've talked a lot about how traumatized the people in your district have been, and there are so many struggles that they've coped with. What do you see as the strengths, and where does the resilience come in from that community?
The strengths, the resiliency is the strength that I see. Just their sheer willing and wanting to do better and want better. And the biggest thing that I see and that warms my heart the most is that they see education as an option, not just a way, because I always teach, education only serves to give you options. So they see it as an option to do better and to get better and to create a better community. So that's, with all the things that they've been through, it's the sheer wanting to want more, want better, to do better, and want to do it themselves. So it's amazing.
Anyone else? Dr. Butts, I personally want to thank you for talking about your why. That's one of the things that I've written extensively about, and I think our results all start with that, is making sure that we have that firmly established in our mind with the folks that we're working with. So thank you for talking about yours, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm sorry to talk so much. I'm a talker.
Good stories. Very good stories.